All right, we're getting ready to get everything started for episode 1 of season 3. Really excited for my special guest. Those of you who are joining us on Facebook can see my special guest waiting for her to join the feed over here on Instagram. Soon as she shows up. We don't want to get the party started too early without the guest of honor. There she is. All right. Waiting for you to accept. We're here.
There we go.
Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
Can you turn the volume on your phone down a little bit?
Yeah.
Awesome. That's so much better. I can hear you. You guys can hopefully hear me. Welcome, everyone. This is, like I said 35 seconds ago, this is season 3, episode number 1 of the Open Heart Collective. I couldn't think of a better way to start off season 3 than to be joined by the one, the only, Ashley Horner. Thank you to Jennifer for making this happen. And if this is your first time being on, or being a part of, or listening to the Open Heart Collective, this is a live podcast where we take a look at mental health from through the stories the people have lived. And with no further ado, Ashley, please introduce yourself and let's get everything started.
Sure. I am Ashley Horner. I am based out of Baltimore. I've definitely been sharing my story now for, I don't know, I guess about 6 months. And really what that's led to is just a large following of people that are very interested in learning how did I navigate through the different adversities that I had, faced throughout my life. In addition to that, just being an entrepreneur and just really looking at how I'm able to not only get my message out there, but how am I able to, launch that into a platform that would, be in the entrepreneurial spirit as it relates to business. And it's just really taken off, and it's been a lot of fun and just really meeting a lot of great people.
Amazing. So the mission of this show, we live in this world in this time that's not very safe for people who are wanting to share their stories. We have to hide a little bit because the public's stance on mental health maybe isn't as strong as it should be. And I'm tired of it. I didn't want to have to, I don't want my kids to have to deal with what I dealt with. And I know the way that we can get past that is to unify our voices and create safe places. And that's exactly what this show is. But we don't just talk about the struggles. We don't just talk about the obstacles. We talk about what we've done to overcome the obstacles and then what's exciting right now. Because for any true breakthrough of a mental health story, we can't just talk about the negative. We have to talk about what happened and what's going on now, so we give people hope. And we give people maybe the inspiration or the action they need to take the action they have to in their own world to make their world better. So
Exactly.
That being said, Ashley, I would love to hear more of your story.
So, I have what I call the Reader's Digest form, and really that's kind of how this all started. I really started on the platform of LinkedIn, and throughout that, I really challenged myself to connect with people offline, and we started to have some conversations, and some of the folks that I started to talk to, they would ask about me, and in sharing those stories, I was talking about business because this is a business platform, right? So Then people really started to dig in a bit more, saying, hey, no, you as a person, not you as the businesswoman, not you as a business owner. And so little by little, I really started to kind of break down the walls, if you will, and just let people in and let people see. So my story really starts out with just being abused as a very young child, then, just going through neglect. And then the state literally coming in and pulling me out of that environment. I was in an orphanage for a few years. I then go off into adoptive home or adoptive family. And during that time, unfortunately, there was only a span of about 4 years that I was in the safe environment. And unfortunately, I had then experienced sexual abuse for almost 10 years. And during that time, I just, you just kind of crawl into a hole and you just get through each and every day as best as you can. And then that resulted in having a little girl. And so as a product of that, I do have a daughter who, quite frankly, I just actually did a post on this last week. She celebrated her 29th birthday. And, I often say to her that she essentially saved me. It was knowing that I needed to protect her, to figure out how to get away from that environment that I was in. And so I did that. I go off to getting married. I get married, and that just turned into the nightmare, finding myself in yet another unhealthy, physically, mentally, verbally abusive relationship. And in the midst of trying to get out of that, I had also recognized for a long time that I was different. And so defining different as I knew I was a gay woman before I ever got married. I knew I was gay way back in the day. And so I've been raised by an Orthodox Catholic family. I now have a daughter. I now have been married and have 2 more children. And I'm about to destroy my family because I just cannot do this anymore. And it was time to file for a divorce and come out of the closet. And I just couldn't do it anymore. I hadn't dealt with the emotional trauma. I hadn't dealt with the physical trauma. I hadn't dealt with any of that. I just continued to push it all down. Right. And the end result of that was a failed attempt I shouldn't say failed attempt, but it was I did try to take my own life. And when I woke to my father holding my hand and expressing that I had done this very bad thing, it was really at that point where I just knew that I had to make some kind of change. And I was going to have to literally go through all of the pain. There was no way around it. I was going to have to go through it all and deal with all of the trauma that I had experienced in my life. And as much as I can sit here and tell the story, there's still all these years of just the trauma. There's still that part of me that recognizes it was very traumatic. It was a lot that I had to manage through to just be able to get through each and every day. And part of that truly had to come from, just that. It was getting up each and every single day, just knowing I had to keep going and pushing forward, not only just for myself, but for my children. My children were very, very young. I had 3 kids under the age of 5. So, they didn't deserve to be raised without a mom. And right. I knew I had to figure it out. So I came out of that as a openly gay woman and came out of the marriage, started to raise my family as a single parent, and through the years just really kind of put my own little toolkit together to be able to manage. Right. Going from one counselor to another, therapy, you name it, until most recently, here I am, like I said, 29 years later after, giving birth to my daughter. I started sharing my story, and it's not just been therapeutic for me, but recognizing that I'm making a difference and I am making an impact on so many other people's lives because of the mental health piece, because of the sexual abuse, domestic abuse. I'm now dealing with a stepdaughter who is, for the last 12 years, who has been dealing with heroin addiction. And so we're navigating through that. And so what I've essentially done by sharing my story is I touch on so many different areas of mental health.
Right.
And I want to continue to talk about these difficult topics like yourself. Let's get them out in the open. Let's remove the labels. Let's remove the stigmas, and let's face them. Let's resolve some of the stuff that we, as we were growing up,
right,
had to hide from.
Yeah. I mean, I can't put it any better than that.
Yeah, it's needed. It's like I always say, and I talk about this quite a bit. When we lost Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain to suicide, it was like the shiny new car in media, right? Everybody starts talking about it. So I'll ask the question, when is the last time you heard about suicide in the media? It's because no one famous has died.
Right.
Same thing with addiction or depression. If it's not the shiny new car in media, it's not being talked about. And so what
Right.
I'm essentially doing is I am forcing the issue to kind of keep it out in the open and in the forefront.
And that is why I wanted you to be the first guest of this new season, because our voices are only going to get louder from here. And the last year, last 2 years, really, with losses from the celebrity level, Anthony Bourdain, Kate Spade, as you mentioned, Mac Miller, Chester Bennington, Cornell, all those guys. But then we take a look at everything that's not being talked about.
Mm-hmm.
The 39 confirmed suicides in my home county from January to the end of August. And the hundreds of thousands more every year.
Yeah.
I can't express this enough. You're not alone. If this show and the message behind this show says nothing else to you, it's because you're not, it's that you're not alone. Whether it's my story that inspires you or Ashley's or one of the other guests that we've had or will yet to have, is what speaks to you to make a change for the better in your life, for whether it be just for yourself or if you're a parent or a leader in a community and yet you're struggling. Let this be the place that you find your voice, because we're here. We're not going anywhere. I like I've said, with a subtle sense of humor in previous episodes, I'm going to speak this until my voice goes away, and then I'm going to pay somebody to do it for me.
Right.
Because that is what it's going to take to make the breakthrough. That's what it's going to take to break the stigma and allow people, regardless of where they're at in the world, whether they're an executive, an entrepreneur, a homemaker, somebody working a 9-to-5, whatever the position, and you're struggling, you can go and you can find help.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that people don't realize. It's across the board. It affects so many people. It's not, again, when there's stigma, when there's labels, it's assumed that it's a certain group of people.
Right.
It's not prejudiced. It's just the same thing I say about addiction. It's not prejudice. It's coming to you in a town closest to you. It's here. It's alive. It's well. And, between depression, suicide, the addiction, abuse, domestic violence, it's a neighbor, it's a relative, someone is going through it. And, the more we talk, to your point, the louder we are, The more noise we make, the bigger the impact we're going to make. And that's essentially my goal, to do the same thing, to use any platform that I possibly can to speak about this, to listen to people. And I think that that's probably one of the biggest challenges that people have. And where do you go? Who do you talk to? And I think, and I said this not too long ago in something that I had posted, and it's just, we all need to learn how to listen better. And until we start doing that, I don't know that, we can talk. That's great. And we need to continue to do that. But I think that there's also a lot of value in, let's listen. Let's listen to those that are willing to talk and not shut them down because we're so busy getting our own messages out there as well.
Yep. Reason being, if you are a person who is struggling, the last thing you want is people telling you what to do or their input on what they think you should do. You just want somebody to listen to you. And I know, because just like Ashley, I've been there. I've been wanting to not be here anymore. And I've tried it multiple times, as you guys very well know. And there was not a thing anybody could say to me in those moments that would have made me feel better, made me feel safer, made me feel less alone, anything. But if somebody said, I'm here to listen, and then shut up and actually let me talk.
Right. Yeah, that's
and thankfully I'm still here, but there are many who aren't.
Yeah, that's just it. When I talk about this, I often will make the comment, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. It's important. I mean, yes, I have the gift of gab and I am quite the talker, but I am also a fan of, shut it down. If, I had somebody reach out to me today, and it was the same thing. It was like, you could tell it was the start of something. Just had to stop the noise for a minute. And hey, you want to take this offline? Here's the phone number, reach out. And it's just recognizing this is way bigger than what meets the eye, and just be that person to listen. And you make a great point. I'll go back to something you just said, when you're feeling lonely, when, people are trying to tell you what to do, one of the worst things, and I remember this all too well, one of the worst things to say to somebody is, I know how you feel. No, you don't. No, you don't. Or there's a comparison of, yeah, I felt that way when, no, stop. Just stop. I
can catch myself doing that now.
You can't do it. It's not it, and I think that that's why what I encourage people to do, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention has a great, if you go on their website, there are specific talking points when you're talking to somebody or when you need to listen, and there's certain verbiage to use. There's certain, just some tips as you engage in a conversation with somebody that's just really struggling. And so I do encourage people to take a look at that, because that is certainly very helpful.
Agreed. It's funny that you mentioned AFSP. Now, I'm not doing this for an attempt at a plug, but one of the artists that I work with on the record label that I run is getting ready to release a new single in December, of which we're going to be donating 50% of proceeds to AFSP.
Oh, that's awesome.
And on top of it, I'm going to match it dollar for dollar. So however much sales come in, I'm putting personally, not out of the company, personally, I'm matching it, because we need to help.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to go back to you. We can talk that all day long, I have a feeling, but So in those moments, because we got a really good look at your story, but now let's kind of hit that middle part, that middle topic that I sent my email earlier. What were some of those specific obstacles that you were presented with, and then how did you overcome them?
The one
And I know the
obstacle.
list is long, so you can truncate it if you choose to.
No. I can keep it short for you. I mean, honestly.
I mean, we do have another 30 minutes, so go for it.
The one obstacle really specifically was I was so incredibly torn, just the whole family, just the guilt. And I knew that I hadn't done wrong. I mean, I wasn't the one who brought the sexual abuse on myself, but when you combine this happened to me, I have a child out of wedlock. There's a story behind that. You're in a small community. People start to figure it out. I've shamed my parents. In my eyes, I've shamed my parents. Then I go off, I get married, and then I'm coming out of that marriage, going through a divorce, and coming out gay. I felt so guilty that I was going to bring on this shame to my own parents, who were just such a loving family. I mean, they're just, my mom and dad, just fantastic people, and well known in the community. And so, and then I try to end my life. And so all of that was just this guilt, and then when I realized, oh my gosh, I'm filing for a divorce, and that means that I'm only going to have my kids like part-time, and and just the overwhelming emotions and the flood of emotions, and I was just done. I was just done. And so overcoming that guilt was literally figuring out how, or really kind of talking my way through that I was not responsible for a lot of what did take place. So I held myself responsible in the areas where I truly was responsible. But I knew at that point too that I was responsible for making a difference in my life, which was then going to translate to breaking the cycle for my children. Because I was now 3 generations in of this type of behavior and the mental trauma. So I had to end it. And that literally, like I was mentioning earlier, for me, it was starting with getting up every single day. And that in itself, as you well know, that is hard. And I literally took it one day at a time. And I knew that once I got up, I would be okay. But to get out of that bed and to fight the fight every single day, that was huge for me. And so it was taking it one day at a time and literally accepting the small successes as a major achievement. What might seem fairly minor, I saw those as huge wins, and I accepted that as such. And then it was truly working through the pain. One thing that I often say to people, and this is going through a program that has made a tremendous difference as recent as this year. As I started to share my story, I knew I was going to have support.
Right.
But what I did was I went through a program that just really kind of sealed the deal for everything for me. And that is, we've been accustomed to the myths. You have to be strong. You can't cry. You're supposed to stay busy, and you can't. Bull. That's a no-go. And when I started to realize that many years ago, that worked for me. And then when I went through this program just this year and it was solidified, I was like, see, But that's how I got through. I got through by not living the myths. I got through by saying it was okay to show emotion. It was okay to not forgive my perpetrator. You know, we're accustomed to believe that we have to forgive the person that hurt us. No, you don't. You don't owe that to anybody. If that's something that you need to do for you, that's okay. But the messaging of the myths that we grow accustomed to is what tends to set people up for failure. Once I let those go, that made a huge difference for me.
I mean, that was so much in such a short period of time. You hit it on the head. I mean, from not living in the myths to allowing yourself to do what you needed for you to get through. And I think that's the important piece. What worked for Ashley might not work for you, but that's okay, because take what Ashley has said and combine it with what Kelvin said from a few episodes or several episodes ago, where he's like, every time I was frustrated or every time I was feeling depressed, I'd write out 20 things I was grateful for. Adapt it to you, because that's how you figure it out. That's how you learn to move through the pain. For me, it's this show. This is my therapy. That's why I, no matter what, will never stop producing this. Even if it's just me talking into a camera at some point, because nobody else wants to talk to me anymore. But you have to find your own way. There will be people to help you, like Ashley and myself, and therapists and support that will help you, but it's on you to figure it out. And allowing yourself that.
That's a great point. That's a great point, because that is actually something that I talk about a lot. And it's, you know, people often say to me, well, I want to know what's your toolkit? And I was like, but it's my toolkit. Okay. To your point, that's what worked for me. And it's funny because I see some family members that go through some, you know, really hard times. And, you know, if there's a moment of just constant negativity and, you know, my life sucks. Well, yeah, life can suck. But for everything, to your point, everything that you mentioned that just really sucks, now give me one thing back to every single thing that you said was negative.
Right.
And part of it is, you know, it's the mindset too. You know, your mindset is so incredibly important. You know, emotion is one thing, but it does start here. And, you know, when there's so much noise, you got to get rid of that clutter. You got to get rid of that noise. And, you know, I think that that's where I fumbled a lot, where there was just so much clutter and so much noise. And finally, I had to just quiet that noise and really focus on, you know, one thing at a time, one thing that was going to make an impact on me, and not try to heal through everything at the same time. I mean, that's a lot of trauma. It's a lot of adversity in what, 25 years that I faced, you know, and then literally just setting myself up for failure if I tried to do it all at the same time. It just wasn't going to work.
Right. Right. All right, guys. So I want to take a moment to mention some of the stuff that we're working on behind the scenes here. And Ashley, I'm going to need your help on this.
Gotcha.
So I've mentioned this in previous episodes, and I'm hoping we can get this going into 2019 as soon as possible. I know it's a massive undertaking, but it's one of the most important missions personally for me that exists on the planet. The access to resources, right? Because the stem of most mental health issues is anxiety. You get anxious, and then that leads to being stressed. Stress causes depression, causes alcoholism, causes eating disorder. All stems from anxiety. Yet, what is our number one resource that we go to when we're struggling with something with mental health? We go to Google, right? We type in depression or WebMD. Yeah. We type in depression and we get obliterated with 80 million search results, depending on obviously how big of a metro area you live in. But then because you have 80 million results, you're not going to make a decision, which means then then the likelihood of you reaching out for help is slim, because there's not something catered to you for what you're struggling with. So, that being said, I and several of my colleagues from this show are amassing a global resource list. I don't care where in the world you are, we're going to find your support. So, the first mission is obviously gain as many resources as possible for all things mental health. Then we're going to put it into an app. And that app is going to operate in a way that's going to allow you to just basically fill in the blank. And based on where you are in the world, it's going to pull a resource that's going to allow you to get a phone call or make a phone call, send an email, or go to them because they're 5 minutes away from your house. Because the access to resources is one of the things that we need in order to break the stigma of mental health. And like I said, I can't do it alone. I'm going to need everybody's help just to amass these resources. So that's what we're going to do. The phase 2 of the Open Heart Collective is launching that. But in the meantime, continuing with this show and sharing of these amazing stories and starting the office hours sessions, which thanks to Lila, who you guys will meet on Friday, inspired me to start those. I'm a month late on that, but still planning on doing it. But in the meantime, if you are someone who is struggling and you don't know where to go, and you happen to be watching this on Instagram or you're on Facebook or YouTube or you're listening to the podcast or the audio version after the fact, my phone number, that rings the phone that I'm talking to you on Instagram. It's in my Instagram profile. Call me, email me. I'll help in whatever way that I can. Because like Ashley, I want to make myself available. All right. So now that that's out of the way, I want to know what's exciting in your world right now. Because like I said, I know it's a lot because I've been paying attention to you for a long time. And when Jennifer reached out to me and then we spoke and then she explained how you were excited to talk to me, I'm like, no, that's the other way around. Anyways, the true end to, not the end to the story because the stories are ongoing, is we got to know what's going on in the exciting realm. We've got to know what's the day-to-day, what's happening that you're working on that is either helping people or helping you, because it's needed.
Yeah, so there are a lot of components of what I'm doing. You know, when I took the leap of faith 2 years ago into the entrepreneurial spirit, I got bitten by the bug, and I can tell you, it's just, I mean, before we got into this, it was, you know, just talking about how busy we are. And I have a lot of irons in the fire, but, you know, when I look at all that I'm doing and everything that I'm involved in with all the irons in the fire, it literally just trickles down to one thing, and that is simply helping others in one way or another. So anybody who doesn't know me, the first company that I launched was a recruiting firm. And to really sum that up, what I am currently doing is I have a app that's in product development now. And that is basically taking a humanistic approach coupled with technology and literally changing the recruiting process as we know it today, which, you know, we talk about depression, we talk about, you know, anxiety when people are unemployed and they have a family that's depending on them, or it's just themselves and they need an income to survive. there is a direct impact there. And so you see the natural crossover, you know, with my own story. I am a huge advocate. I am a diverse certified recruiting firm that we focus on the minority groups, LGBTQ, the veterans, the military spouses, the women, you know, so we are across the board huge advocates of diversity and inclusion. In addition to that, I'm a part of a global organization called Mentor You, and that's where we're basically mentoring in a pro bono manner. And, you know, if it's through starting off your business, or if you just need some help as it relates to your job search or career coaching or whatever that looks like. And then Anchored Souls, you know, I'm just really trying to get that kicked off, and similar to you of what I'm trying to put together as a resource. I myself recently launched a podcast, Anchored Souls.
Congrats. Welcome to the madness.
Yeah, and that's just exactly what it is. But that said, it is, again, talking about all those different topics that I cover under Anchored Souls and sharing those stories, and then turning that into a weekly webinar where people can actually call in and ask questions and have a SME on the other end of that webinar. Because of the life that I'm currently living, and I'm a full-time grandparent because of addiction, again, it's the spin-off of Anchored Souls, so there is that crossover. So we talk about addiction, and now we have a child or children that have absent parents, but they need somebody to care for them. Rather than putting them in a system, you have kinship caregivers. And so those caregivers need resources. And where do you go? I mean, we were in that situation. We have a child, and it's now what? You know, so... And then there's a lot of other things that you're dealing with as you're navigating through that. So it's setting up those resources. And so there's a lot of, like I said, a lot of irons in the fire, but it's a very exciting time right now. And just, we are hoping to launch the app. Our go live date is the beginning of the year. And then I just recently created a team where we are essentially that go-to. Will be that one-stop shop, if you will, and the marketplace in recruitment. And so, again, all a direct and some crossover in everything that I do. And I think, and I just mentioned this to somebody today, I said, you know, I think I'm at the point, I'm extended far enough, I'm done. But I'm super, super excited with every project that I'm doing. And then I have this amazing mentor / advisor who's really kind of kept me on point, where I've started to write my book, because that kept getting pushed and pushed and pushed. And so I'm spending on average about an hour a day to work on that. And really it's taking the video that I already have through my YouTube channel. Almost all of my videos and sharing my story is out there. And it's really just filling in the gaps. And so to your point, there is no end. The story is still unfolding. And, you know, as most recent, you know, our estranged stepdaughter who we hadn't heard from her for 2 years, who is now in rehab. So we're navigating through that now. And so what does that look like? So yeah, a lot of great stuff, and always looking for an opportunity to speak to different organizations, and always open to listen to anyone that reaches out.
Awesome. Well, all of that is amazing. And I'm glad that I can help you share your story. I have a feeling this season's going to be really an amazing one, and a lot of it's thanks to incredible people like you. If somebody wanted to find Ashley, where could they find you? Or where is the best place?
The best place, quite frankly, at this point is LinkedIn. I've really kind of, you know, yes, I am visible on the other platforms, but there's a level of importance of remaining very, you know, visible on one because I don't want to get to a point where I'm letting people down because I've extended myself into so many different platforms.
Right.
So LinkedIn is definitely the best place under Ashley Horner. I invite anybody and everybody to connect with me.
Until
Send me
you
a
reach
message.
30,000, of course.
Yeah, so there's something about that. Ironically, I was just on the phone with LinkedIn 2 weeks ago. I was being interviewed by them and they were asking for recommendations. And I was like, stop it with the connections, the limitations. That's crazy. Somebody shouldn't have to buy InMail, right?
Right.
If they want to get in touch with me. But to be honest, my email is on my profile. My phone number is even on my profile. So LinkedIn, I've set it up so it's easy. Also, my calendar link is available. So you can actually book some time immediately. It's a 15-minute spot. We can certainly have a quick chat. And if it seems like we need to extend the conversation, we can do that through another opportunity.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I do again want to say thank you to Jennifer for pulling all of this together. It was the first time a guest on this show came to me via a publicist. So apparently
she's
that
pretty
means I'm doing
amazing.
something right.
Yeah, she's definitely pretty amazing.
Yep, as she's commenting on the Facebook video right now. I hope that this connected with at least one of you tonight, because my mission every single day, especially with this show, is to just make an impact on one person's life. Obviously, I want to make impact on thousands. We want to make impact on thousands of people's lives on a daily basis, but I'm good with one. So I hope this hit home with at least one of you tonight. We are going to be back with a new episode on Friday night, back to the normal time of 6 o'clock. I had a family commitment this evening, so I had to move the time frame up. But my guest on Friday at 6 p.m. Central Time will be Lila Smith, another amazing human being with another incredible story. And I can't wait. So, Ashley, thank you, my friend. If you need anything, I'm here for you. Jennifer knows. She knows how to get in touch. So consider me a resource in anything you have going on, because I have a feeling I have complementary skill sets to you.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that. We'll definitely have to have another chat offline.
Absolutely. Everybody on I almost said LinkedIn because of, anyways, everybody on Instagram, I want to say a personal thank you for paying attention and staying engaged tonight. Everybody on Facebook, thank you as well. Instagram, unfortunately, this video will go bye-bye in 24 hours, but we'll live forever on Facebook, or at least until Facebook goes away. But don't worry, because for all of you audio fans out there, this will be available Sunday night on all of the major podcasting platforms. And then the video will also be available on YouTube. So, Ashley.
Which, of course, I will grab and I will post that to my friends over on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. And I'll post it to my slightly smaller friend group on LinkedIn.
I'm going to help you with that.
Awesome. Fantastic. Everybody, have a great evening. But before I let you go, I have to end it with this little mantra because I think it's important. So, be happy, number one. Have fun, number two. And then remember, you got to actually work for it, right? So you got to hustle. But keep in mind, there is no amount of hustle on planet Earth that can bring happiness or fun into your world. So you got to have those two first. And then you got to make sure to make time to breathe, because it's kind of important. Even if you just force yourself to say the word breathe once a day, it'll actually make you breathe. It's kind of fun. Anyways, until next time, guys, have an amazing rest of the week, and we'll see you on Friday. Bye, Instagram. And then we'll say bye to Facebook.